Are we good to go, Adam? Yeah, it's recording. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, Promoting Student Interaction and Engagement in Remote Learning. My name is Jasmine Parent. I'm a learning technology consultant at TLS, and I'm here today with a colleague who will be co-hosting the webinar with me, Erin McDonough, who is a teaching and learning planner at TLS. We want to let you know that this session is being recorded. If you prefer not to be visible, you can always turn off your video so that you don't appear in the recording. Also, I'd like to note that you are muted upon entry, so we're going to ask you to hold off with questions while we present. We will be setting aside time at the end of the webinar to address some of your questions. And finally, one more point, I'd like to say that the slides for this webinar will be posted, or actually they are already posted on our webinar page. So let's get started. We're going to start by going over the goals we have for today's webinar. Our goal for today's webinar is to define engagement and interaction in the context of remote learning. We will also be identifying technologies and strategies you can use to include fixed and flexible activities to promote engagement in your course. So let's define what we mean when we say engagement and interaction. The concept of engagement and interaction is a multidimensional one. Before we start giving you strategies on how to increase engagement, we think it's important that you realize that there are a few different modes of engagement and interaction when it comes to education. So interaction can occur through students engaging with the course content. It can occur between students, and it can occur between an instructor and a student. So it's something to keep in mind in a remote learning environment is that instructors and their students' peers can sometimes seem like these mystical figures that exist only behind a screen. In this type of environment, since students don't have that physical connection to the university, their connection to you and the other students in the class often become the main connection they have to the institution. So because of this, it's important to foster some sort of rapport with your students and give them opportunities to connect with each other. So creating a sense of community is really essential to learning, especially in a remote learning environment. It's important to be very intentional with how you design strategies to increase engagement and that the strategies align with your learning outcomes. So this will help your students achieve a more deep and meaningful learning experience. In the following slides, we're going to present you with ideas and strategies on how you can promote engagement and ultimately create a deeper learning experience in a remote environment. I'm going to pass the next section off to my colleague, Erin. So Erin, take it away.
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Erin McDonough. I'm a teaching and learning planner at Teaching and Learning Services. And primarily, I deal with physical spaces at the university. So this is kind of new material for me, but I'm really excited to be with you here today. So we're going to start by speaking about fixed or flexible. So for those of you who have attended one of our previous webinars on teaching remotely, you've probably had some exposure to these terms. If we go on to the, if we go to the next slide. So briefly put, fixed interactions are fixed in time. What we're talking about is time-based. So when we're doing a fixed interaction or a fixed activity, the students and instructors are basically almost like in a room together. So if you think about the classroom situation that you're used to, a fixed interaction replicates that kind of experience. So students and instructors are engaging in an activity together in a shared virtual space rather than a physical space. And by and large, in our context, those activities will take place using Zoom. I'll get into that in a little more detail in a moment. In opposition to this are flexible interactions, which are designed to be accessible to students. They can access them at different times. So there's no live component with a flexible interaction. And what I want to emphasize here is that choosing the interactions that fit each type of delivery is really up to you as an instructor, and it's based on your course context and the learning outcomes that you've set in your course. So also, there's a lot of mutability and a lot of complementarity between the two types of interactions. A live class, for instance, you can record that in Zoom and then you can upload it to my courses. So it makes what was originally a fixed interaction into something that can be accessed in a flexible way. So in this webinar, what we really want to do is emphasize that you can have both fixed and flexible interactions as part of your course delivery. And we want to encourage you to think in that way. So next slide, please. So I'm going to start off by talking about fixed activities. And I'll start off with this example of how you might want to think about breaking up a live class that you're delivering by Zoom. So this is an example that we have found from the University of Minnesota. It's a really great example. It's about an hour-long class. And basically what you're seeing here is the class is broken up into sections that alternate live, the delivery of content with different types of activities. So basically this person has decided we're just going to jump right into it, and we're going to start off with a whiteboard activity. And in this whiteboard activity, we'll have a question and have students propose different answers to the questions, put up different notes. And then we're going to go right into a poll. So this is before any content has actually even been delivered. So the poll would be maybe to ascertain some people's pre-existing ideas on the topic that you're going to be discussing that day. And then right into a mini lecture where there's some content that's delivered, and then the instructor is using the annotation features to mark up slides and have a little bit of interactivity there. And then back into another poll. And this could be a low stakes knowledge check, which Jasmine is going to give a little bit more information on in a minute. Just, maybe asking, so how is everybody doing? How do you understand? Has anything I said surprised you? And then maybe into a breakout room. So you can see that there's this alternating content between things that are interactive and content delivery. And one of the benefits of this is that it really does help you to avoid Zoom fatigue. This is a term that's, I'm sure some of you are, if not intimately familiar with from your own lives, then you probably heard it discussed. It can be a little bit exhausting to be on Zoom all day long. And by giving students a chance to talk to their peers, to engage in different ways, and then intersperse that with the delivery of content, you can help to mitigate some of the effects of Zoom fatigue. So if we can go on to the next slide here. So today I'm going to be focusing on 3 different types of interaction, and this calls back to the model that Jasmine explained at the beginning of the webinar. So briefly put, there are different types of activities that you can do using Zoom in a live class session that support instructor-student interaction, student-to-student interaction, specifically through breakout rooms, and then student-to-content interaction. That would be through polling. So again, this webinar is going to be showing you some of these different techniques. I want to point out that there are going to be future webinars that will give you the opportunity to learn a little bit more about things like Zoom, about polling. I'd encourage you to look at our website to see when those offerings will be held. But this webinar is going to be more about the what that's available, and the how will be more in future webinars. So for instructor-student interaction, so right now we're on a Zoom call, and I can see that there have been some things coming up in the chat. That's the first type of interaction I want to get into. So basically a live chat during the class. You can put out a question to your students, ask them what they think about a certain topic, and they can respond in the chat bar. So this is a good tool for those live classes. It's probably good if you have a larger class, if you can assign somebody like your TA the task of moderating the chat so they can bring forward any interesting points that come up or any questions. Another thing is that you can deploy it strategically at different intervals. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing proposition. In the security bar in your Zoom toolbar, you can actually turn off the chat. So let's say it's too distracting. Let's say you're trying to deliver content and there are just too many questions coming up. You can disable that feature. Or what you may want to do is turn it on at a certain point and say, okay, now I'm throwing open the chat. Who has a question? So the next feature I'd like to call up is screen share. And that's the green button in the middle of the Zoom toolbar. So if you were teaching in the winter of 2020 semester, you probably already have some experience with this feature because you were sharing your slides with students while you're doing your presentation. And that's actually what we are doing right now. So you're seeing a live example of it, but there's so much more to this feature. It's a really rich feature that Zoom has. You can, you can share different computer applications. You can share a whiteboard, like we saw in the example of the different activities during the class. You can annotate your slides. You can share SPSS, for instance, if you want to share some stats. There's a lot you can do with it. And you can actually even have peripherals, like if you have a cell phone or an iPad, you can use that as a remote document camera through the share screen function. So again, there's going to be a future webinar on this. I highly encourage you to attend it on upping your Zoom skills if you're interested in these types of uses of Zoom. And then the last feature I want to call out is the reactions button. That's the far right icon that you see on the Zoom toolbar. And this is a really neat tool if you want to have students engage in a quick real-time way to content that you're presenting. So there are two options. There's thumbs up and there's a little clap icon. And when the student, when you initiate one of these reactions, everybody can see the reaction. So actually, let's just try it right now. So if you want to just go and click on reactions and show me the reaction of your choosing. Excellent, so I'm seeing some thumbs up coming up. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so it's visible, everybody can see it. It might just be a way of gauging the temperature in the room, seeing how people feel about what's going on. And it's almost like a way of forming a little community. Everybody's out there, everybody's listening. It's a way of showing that you're all in the room together. So we'll go to the next slide. So then the next activity type, student-to-student interaction. So Zoom is actually one of the best products on the market for this type of interaction. We looked at a lot of different tools. This one is the best for breakout rooms. It's very similar to the experience of having students break out into different group discussions in the classroom. And it's also very easy to bring the students back into the plenary session. So it's an easy to use tool. You can set limits of up to 200 students in a room. I can't really imagine a lot of use cases where that would be useful. It might be a bit difficult to have a discussion with 200 in the room, but just to give you an idea of what the limitations are, it's quite high. And you can have up to 50 breakout rooms at once. And so there are different ways that you can do this. So let's say you have a class where you already know that you have certain types of group compositions that you would like to create for discussions. You can actually set those up in advance using My Courses. There'll be more information about this available on our website, but you can kind of like engineer these groups to have the type of composition you want. Or let's say you're in a class and all of a sudden you decide, hey, this would be a really great discussion question to get to my students to discuss. That way, if you want to do that, you can set them up on the fly, and Zoom will randomly assort people into groups depending on how many groups you want to form. So there are different ways that the breakout rooms can be created. We find that students really get a lot out of them. Instructors also like it too. As an instructor, you can actually visit the room, see what's going on. Students can raise their hands while they're in the room, and you can visit them to see what's going on if they have a question, if they need some guidance. And it's also another way to really break up some of the tediousness of long Zoom meetings. We'll go on to the next slide. So student to content interactions. So quickly, I want to go over 3 ways that you can make this happen in your remote teaching activities. So I've ordered these in a way that shows that there are different levels of sophistication and different levels of preparedness that you need to have. The quickest and the easiest way that you can do a poll in a live Zoom session is through the yes or no button. So it's really easy. What you do is you click on participants. You'll see there's like a little check mark, a little X, and you can ask a quick yes or no question, and Zoom will tabulate the results for them. So maybe we could just do that quickly if you want to hit participants, and then just let me know. Yeah, so I see the results are flooding in. Everybody's hitting yes. That's great. And the benefit of this one too, and I think that one particular use case you may want to consider is if you're asking a question like, is everybody comfortable? Does everybody understand? There may be some students who may be hesitant to acknowledge this publicly. And if you use, for instance, the reactions button that we reviewed before, maybe some students wouldn't want to say, no, I don't understand. So but this way you can see if there's a general consensus around whether people understand the concept that's being discussed or if they have any questions. Moving up in terms of the complexity and the ease of use, there's Zoom polling. We're going to see this in real time in just a second, but I'll just give you a quick, quick briefing of what the advantages are. So it's very easy to use, and you can use in multiple choice questions. But the con is that you are limited to those multiple choice questions. And then in our experience, when you do a poll, it doesn't become a part of the Zoom recording. You do have access to the archive of the poll, but you can't actually see the poll as it was administered in the session. And then lastly, the most sophisticated type of solution we have at McGill is polling at McGill. If you've been using that already in your classrooms and in your physical classrooms. We encourage you to continue doing that. There's going to be a further webinar specifically on this topic to get a few more tips and to level up your use of the technology. It is very rich in terms of analytics. You can ask different types of questions, but it does, on the other hand, require a little more preparation, and it can be a bit more complicated to use if it's your first time. So moving on, we're going to do a quick activity. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to practice what I'm preaching here and administer a poll to you. So here I go to launch the poll. You should now see a poll on your screen, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer. Just click on the answer of your choice. The question is, which polling method are you most likely to use in your course or courses, depending. So I can see, as the poll administrator, I can see the responses coming in. When I end the poll, you'll see it too. You've got another 5 seconds to put in your answer. And here, I'm going to end the poll. And now you should be able to see the results. So Zoom polling seems to actually be pretty popular. That's the leader. But it seems like most people are in favor of this type of technology. So that's great. I'm really glad to hear that. It's a fun way to get your students engaged, kind of low stakes, but it keeps them involved in the conversation. I'll just turn it over to you now, Jasmine.
Thank you, Erin. So let's talk a little bit about flexible interactive learning activities. There are different ways in which you can get your students to interact and engage more deeply with your content. One way to do so is by adding very quick, low-stakes learning activities to the flow of your content. So we suggest adding a learning activity between content topics rather than presenting long pieces of content and then giving your students knowledge checks at the end of a module. You might want to consider staggering or alternating your content with an activity. Just a note, when I say content, I mean your course materials. So like your PowerPoint slides, readings, articles, videos. The activities are the interactive pieces that allow students to participate with understanding your content. So there are different types of active learning pieces. Activities can be a self-assessment question, it could be a quiz question, a survey question, or a discussion prompt. Oops, I'm sorry. Short activities like these give students the opportunity to check in with their learning. It also shifts their focus from either reading or listening passively to being a little more active with their learning. So you can use these types of activities as knowledge checks after you present an idea or as a way to get them thinking about the next content topic. So this is student to content interaction. Let's talk a little bit about flexible activities for student to student interaction. So Microsoft Teams is available to McGill students through the Office 365 suite. Students often use multiple platforms to organize group work. So they might have their files saved on OneDrive or Google Drive. They might use Skype or different forms of video chat for their virtual meetings. And then another platform to just chat and brainstorm. So rather than having them go to 5 different places to do a group project, for example, in a remote setting, they can use Teams to achieve all of these tasks. So Teams allows students to create a team, add their peers, have conversations, upload and be working on files simultaneously, and also have virtual meetings. And best of all, it's provided and supported by McGill, so it's free. So the next one is a big one, discussion boards. So we're going to be talking mostly about my course's discussion boards. Discussion boards are an excellent tool to use to promote engagement and interaction. The discussion boards can actually be used to achieve all modes of interaction in remote learning. So you can have students interact with your content by using discussion boards for a place of reflection or self-assessment. You can use question prompts that give them the opportunity to deeply reflect on what they know, what they understand, or what they might not. You can also use discussion boards to have students answer topic or reading-based questions, for example, or have them write short summaries of a reading that you want them to do, or perhaps answer questions about the reading. So this is an example of a discussion board for a unit in the World of Chemistry course. As you can see within the unit, there are multiple discussion questions about topics within that unit. So this is a way for you to pinpoint potential troubled areas where you need to make clarifications on material depending on misconceptions that may arise. You can interact with your students on the discussion board as well. So here you can see an example of a forum used for students to ask questions to their instructor or their TA, to have them clarify misunderstandings or just pose questions about the course or the content in general. This can be a time saver for you or your TAs when you're answering frequently asked questions through email. So you might be receiving tons of emails and all the questions are relatively the same. So instead of answering them one by one, you could actually post your response on the discussion board in a Q&A section and have all of your students go there to read it. You can use it to get to know your students as well. So you might want to post an introductory video or have or just a post about yourself and your course, and then have your students introduce themselves as well on the discussion board. So this will facilitate instructor-student interaction, but also student-to-student interaction, and is a good way to build a sense of community. And finally, you might not know this, but I've seen instructors use discussion boards as a place for students to post reflective journals. You can set it up so that only you and your student can view individual journal entries. So throughout the semester, students will answer questions or perhaps reflect on material in which you can provide very personalized feedback to each student through the discussion board. Discussion boards are also a great place for students to connect with each other. You can have a forum dedicated to a student cafe where students can ask questions to each other or have conversations. It's also an opportunity for students to share various kinds of content with each other. So maybe they'll have an interesting article or a video or a website that they want to share with their peers, or even give each other reminders on due dates. It's really a place where they can connect with each other. And you can set up discussion boards specifically for group work so that students within a group are only able to see their group discussion forum. In general, discussion boards are great because they can result in more thought-provoking responses, and it gives students more time to discuss and think about course content than in a live class, for example. One of my favorite things about discussion boards is that it may also be a place for the more reserved and quiet students to feel more comfortable asking questions or posting their thoughts versus in a face-to-face lecture. So we have some recommended practices that we want you to share for discussion boards. So concerning feedback, sorry, lost my spot. So concerning feedback, you might want to consider some very basic feedback practices or more sophisticated. You can set up your discussion posts to allow for upvotes or star ratings, which you can give your students, or you can have them give to each other. A more sophisticated way to give feedback to your students is using a rubric with well-defined criteria on what you expect, and then assessing how well they've met the criteria in the rubric. So here's a very basic example of a rubric that might be used for a discussion board. You can fill in, create your own criteria and decide what constitutes as a good or a poor post. You can also link a discussion topic to your gradebook if you'd like to use a certain topic for assessment purposes. So some strategies to increase interaction on the discussion boards can vary depending on your course, depending on your context. You can create smaller discussion groups, as you can see here, especially if you have a really large class. It might be easier and a little more intimate for students to be discussing in smaller groups. You can design an activity where interaction is necessary. So for example, you can tell your students that they're required to post at least one post of their own and required to respond to at least one post of their peers. You can include a setting that students can't see their peers' posts until they make the first post. So this might be useful if you're asking a question and you don't want your students to be influenced by their other classmates before they post their answers or thoughts. And finally, it's important to consider the question type for the prompt. It's a better practice to ask more open-ended questions or maybe multiple questions that students can choose from. This just avoids having students writing one-word responses that really don't facilitate any form of further discussion. One last thing to think about is how you're going to manage communications in your discussion board. So it's a good idea to set expectations for your students. Give students specific directions with minimum number of words required, minimum number of references or examples, and what your standards might be regarding the formality of language. So is participation required? How often are they expected to post? Are you going to value quality over quantity? Here's an example of some basic guidelines that are given to students regarding a discussion board. And as you can see here, the second guideline is be polite, which is an example of establishing rules for what we call netiquette. So netiquette in a nutshell is online communication etiquette. It's important to clarify from the beginning that abusive or offensive communications will not be tolerated in a discussion board. You can also clarify what you expect from your students in terms of writing academically. Let them know that to avoid using emojis or slang, and ensure that they use proper citations and references. And finally, you might want to consider how your discussion board is going to be moderated. So are you going to be moderating the posts? Are you going to be reading everything that's coming in and perhaps responding? Is your TA going to be moderating? There are some cases where I've seen instructors actually assign student moderators within the class. So as you can see, there are many things to consider and many ways in which you can use the discussion board to promote engagement in your course. So it might seem overwhelming, but discussions can really provide some great active and social learning opportunities. And especially in this context, remote learning might feel isolating for students when they can't see their peers. So just using the discussion board as an opportunity to set a space for people to connect with each other will help them feel a little less alone in the experience. And it's also a really unique opportunity for students to process content a little more deeply, ask questions, maybe have debates, and share their diverse perspectives. So back to you, Erin.
Hi again, everyone. So this is bringing us to the end of our webinar. We hope that you found it useful, but I know that probably many of you are thinking that was a lot of information and I'm not really sure where to go next. And so we have resources for you. We understand it's a bit overwhelming right now. There's a lot of choices that you need to make, a lot of thinking about how you want to structure your course as you prepare for remote teaching this fall, or if you're already doing it this summer. So the first resource I want to point out is My Courses Essentials. So this is a course that was developed by TLS that goes over a lot of the functions of My Courses. It's a self-paced course. You can take it at your leisure. There's a great discussion board that you can use to post questions that you have. That's what you see circled in the slide in front of us. I'd really highly encourage you to look at it. You should be enrolled in it by default as an instructor. If you're not there, there's a batch upload of new instructors every night. Perhaps check again the next day. But I would really highly encourage you to have a look at it. Next slide. And as I've alluded to before, we have plenty of webinars coming up, and in modeling our own call to do both flexible and fixed activities. We have them both live, and we also have recordings of previously offered webinars available on our website. So you should be able to access them either live or at your leisure. This is sort of a little bit of a hierarchy showing how things fit together. There are follow-ups to this meeting. I mentioned that there's a polling webinar coming up. There's also a Zoom meetings webinar coming up. I'd encourage you to have a look at both of those. And at this point, I'd like to open the floor to questions. All of those burning questions that you've been holding on to, please flood our chat now. We'll be checking it and answering them as we go. And thanks very much for coming today. It's been a really great opportunity to see and hear from you about the experiences you're having and the questions that you have. So just looking through. Is there any way to simulate discussion boards and the like? before a course starts, or just get used to the tools? So I'm understanding this question to mean, is there a way for you to sort of practice setting up discussion boards? I don't know if maybe this is something you want to speak to, Jasmine?
I'm just wondering if you mean for students to be able to practice. You can open your course up before a course start date, so students can go in and explore the different tools in my courses for sure, and you can have discussion boards there ready. However, it's not, you have to realize that you can't make it a requirement for students to do that before the start of a course. But I'm thinking of the question, is there any way to simulate discussion boards in general during the time a course is happening? Like I said, you can always have activities where students are required to at least post one of their own original posts and maybe respond to a student. So setting up those types of expectations. I talked about this in the webinar that we gave on Tuesday. It's also really nice to kind of model the behavior that you want your students to have on a discussion board. So like you engage with it as well, letting them know that you're reading their posts. And I think this is something that you can establish in your communications from the beginning, letting them know that you're going to be paying attention to what they're posting and encourage them to post. But it really depends on what forum or topic you're going to have there.
Yeah, just on the topic of practicing too, I know, as I was saying before, that a lot of these features may seem a little bit overwhelming or telling you they're simple, but I'm sure you want to practice yourself. I'd encourage you to find some sort of a practice buddy and do some sort of a Zoom session where you can practice these features. They can give you feedback on how smoothly they roll out, if they're seeing the content you want them to see, if it's working the way you intend it to work. And you can do that just by setting up a meeting and sending it to a friend. Yeah, Adam's commenting on empathy. That's a big one for me. I think that we're all sort of struggling through this. I mean, throughout this webinar, I've been expecting my kid to come running in the background. So, I mean, I'm sure that's a situation that's common to a lot of us. I think that showing vulnerability is not something that we need to worry about. You know, do your best and just give it a little bit of forethought and do your best in the live sessions and in your flexible activities.
One thing I wanted to jump in with the empathy comment, I think you guys have made some great examples. One of the things we know about, especially during kind of the trauma-informed kind of teaching and all the things around pandemic, is everybody's coming from a different perspective and coming at it differently. And asking your students to open up at the beginning of your class with some things and discussions could be a great way to break down those kind of initial barriers of being worried about, oh, I don't want to post anything with anybody there. But, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be personal, but it could be things like, you know, where are you from? Are you in the same time zone as us? Are you, you know, in your own parents' basement? Or are you living on your own? Or are you, you know, coming from China? Are you coming from, who knows? And I think the more we kind of create that community inside our courses, the better off we're going to be. And discussions are a great way of doing that at people's discretion in a sort of a real flexible way, asynchronously.
Yeah. I know in previous version of this webinar, we actually had a question about how you can share music from Zoom. So that's part of the share screen function. Some people from the Faculty of Music were wondering if this is possible. So yeah, it's you share it as another source to the conversation, to the live meeting. So that is something that's possible. Zoom does it very, very well. Zoom actually has quite a few features. And again, the Zoom session that will be offered by Adam, who's in this meeting today, and another of our colleagues, Alex, will help you with finding some of those features and matching them to the type of content that you want to have in your classes. And we've also had a lot of questions in the past about whether or not you should expect to moderate discussion boards, and as the instructor, how often you should be poking in there and making comments. And I think Jasmine had some good points on that.
Yeah, it really depends on what you're using the discussion board for. So if you have like a student cafe set up, you likely don't really have to monitor that too closely. It's really just an open space where students can interact with each other. You can go in and obviously check and make sure that there's etiquette is being followed, netiquette is being followed. But if you have it depends on what your learning outcomes are. It depends on what your goals are for that particular discussion prompt. If you're asking a question that has a correct or incorrect answer, you might want to jump in when you see students maybe saying something that's incorrect, just to clarify any confusion. But if it's more open-ended questions, in courses that I've taken, online courses, usually the instructor would kind of stay out of it, but at the end do a sort of recap, a sort of conclusive statement, just thanking people and making some of the points that students had come up with. So it really depends on how you're using the discussion board. There's no real right or wrong way in terms of moderating, but it depends on your purpose and your context.
Yeah, and I see there was a question about asking questions in real time but remaining anonymous if your students prefer not to be seen or heard on a Zoom recording. So Adam had responded, they can not turn on their video, they can do audio only. Another suggestion might be if you have informed the students that you're checking the chat, they can send you a private message in the chat so that it's not seen by other people in the conversation. Just remember that anybody, any private messages will appear in the transcript of the chat, which is sent to you automatically as the host of the meeting after the meeting is ended. So yeah, so we have some interest in learning more about how to use external devices as doc cams. I think that's something that's going to come up in the Zoom meetings webinar that's coming up in the next the following days. Is it possible for users to edit their screen names? Absolutely, you can do that. That is available to everybody. We've actually had some fun with that in some of our meetings, calling ourselves silly things. So you do that through the settings in Zoom.
I just want to get to a question from Carrie. Are your ideas for flexible modes of student engagement advisable as the main ways in which students engage with the course? So I'm wondering if you mean ways in which students engage with the content. So the ways that I spoke about adding certain interactive activities throughout your content, or are you meaning more the ways that they could use the discussion board? Both content engagement, but also with others. The discussion board in my courses is probably the best way, the best tool that you can use to foster engagement. And it's within my courses, you know, if there are other tools that exist external to my courses, but if you want everything in the same place, I would suggest using the discussion board. And just a note that students can't create posts on discussion boards until the instructor creates a space for them to do so. So you have forums and you have topics. Forum is just essentially a way to categorize your topics, and topics are what students engage with. So even if you just set it up, open it up, like I said, a student cafe, that's a space for them to be able to connect with each other. And in online courses, it's really important to have discussion boards and have opportunities for this type of connection. I know this is remote, this isn't necessarily permanent, but I think within the context of, you know, things being quite crazy and extraordinary right now, just being intentional and keeping in mind how important setting up this type of interaction is a good thing to think about.
I also just want to make a quick plug for the fact that there is a mobile app for my courses called Pulse. I think Jasmine, sorry to put you on the spot again, Jasmine, I think you're probably better placed to speak about exactly how to get that app and what it does.
Yeah, so Pulse is what it's called. Students can search for that in their app store, and it's essentially an app that's used to have my courses on their phone, on their mobile device, or even their tablet. But it will then give students notifications if there's new content added, or if they've engaged in a discussion board. It'll give them notifications when somebody's responded to their threads or their replies. So that might be something to keep in mind. Let your students know that it exists. It'll also notify them if you post any more, if you post a new topic in a discussion board, and then they can go right in and check it out from the app itself.
Are there any other questions that we can answer? We're also available to you if you send a question to tls@mcgill.ca. And there's plenty of resources on our website that if you go to mcgill.ca/ oh gosh, Jasmine, fill it in for me.
I was just reading. Could you repeat that?
The exact URL for the remote teaching guide.
Oh my, I don't know.
Yeah, Adam, can you put it in the chat? Yeah, but there are plenty of there. Thank you very much. I couldn't remember if it was just class disruption or if there was instructors in there. So if you go there, there are plenty of resources available for you to read at your leisure. We will be continuing to offer webinars in the coming weeks on a variety of different subjects. You'll find all that information on our website as well. But again, I just wanted to, there are no more, oh, sorry, I missed this question.
One question for you there, yeah.
Yeah, is there a way to share a document in Zoom so two people can write at the same time? Yes. So if you set up in your security settings that more than one person can annotate at a time, then that is possible. This again will be part of the Leveling Up Your Zoom Skills webinar, but it is possible. So yeah, I guess I'll go back to my summary statement then. And actually, I wanted to, just before I close off, I noticed that the person, Mehran Dasmalchi, you have a check mark. I just want to make sure you didn't have a question that you wanted to ask. Okay, it's gone. So I guess that's all right. All right. So yes, thank you so much for coming today. It's been a pleasure to see many of your faces and to hear your questions. We know these are very difficult times that we're living through, and we know you're all doing your best, and it's appreciated. And we hope to see you at future webinars. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great weekend.